The topic sentence says this, my friends. The big idea. In John chapter 8, verses 15 and 16, Jesus makes a strong distinction between worldly and godly judgment. He makes a strong distinction between the judgment of us and the judgment of God. Let's take these two verses and break them down by slow rolling through the four phrases. The first phrase, it's about worldly judgment. John chapter 8, verse 15. You people judge according to the flesh. Chapter 8, verse 15, part A. He's condemning the self-righteous religious leaders for worldly judgment. They are making judgments, they are condemning, they are making accusations, they are jumping to assumptions based on what they can see and what they can hear, and they fill in the gaps. And we've talked about that earlier in this chapter, how that's why so often our judgments are wrong. We have a limited perspective, we assume an awful lot, we jump to conclusions way before we should, and then we storm forward like we're the righteous vanguard, and in the process we cause more damage and more trouble and more problems because of it. Jesus is calling them for their bad judgment, and he does it right. We don't have to look too far to find examples of bad judgment. Not pointing any fingers, except fingers at me. Worldly judgment gone wild is all throughout the Bible. Let's look at some Bible examples of worldly judgment gone wild. Take the first woman, Eve. Adam and Eve, they're in a garden of paradise, and they are only given one rule. They're only given one rule. Do whatever you want, but whatever you do, do not eat at that buffet. The tree of knowledge of good and evil. Eat from all the fruit of the orchard, but not that one. Just one tree in the orchard you can't eat from. And of course, we know what happens. Eve gets manipulated by the serpent. She gets talked into eating the fruit. There's a great debate. There's manipulation. There's a lot of stuff going on. And finally, Eve succumbs to the devil's temptation and eats the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then she hands that fruit to Adam and says, just eat this. And he says yes and bites it. Worldly judgment gone wrong. Eve violates the one command, making judgments according to the flesh. How about Lot? Lot and Abram. Lot and Abram are family. Lot and Abram have huge flocks. They're up in the mountains, and their flocks are getting intermingled. They're under shepherds. They're causing problems with one another. So Abram, as the leader of the tribe, says, listen, we need to separate. Lot, you pick wherever you want to go, and I'll go in the other direction. Lot, you choose either to stay in the mountains or to go down in the valley, and I'll do the opposite. So we'll be separated, so there'll be peace among us. Lot looks at this beautiful, majestic Wasatch Front. No, wait, that's not mountains. And he looks down into the valley and sees the big cities, the neon lights, the gambling that's allowed. And Lot, worldly judgment gone wrong, chooses the sparkling nightlife of the city and goes down into the valley. And Abram stays in the mountains. And we know how that turned out. Adam and Eve got kicked out of the garden because of eating at the buffet they weren't supposed to. Lot, kings sweep in, evade. Angels come down, Sodom and Gomorrah is going to be destroyed. Run for your lives. And then a pillar of salt and the end of the world, and then incest. It all goes wrong. Worldly judgment gone wrong and its consequences. Eve, Lot. Bad examples. Bad judgment. My favorite of these three is Jonah, because you got to love Jonah. Jonah is an Old Testament prophet. He's prophesying to God's chosen people. And God says to Jonah, the prophet, listen, I want you to go north. I want you to go to a foreign nation. I want you to go to Nineveh and preach revival, repentance, or the end of the world to the enemies of Israel. And the prophet of God says, no. You want me to go north by land? I'm going to go west by water. Worldly judgment gone wrong. Jonah, as a prophet of the Lord, actually thought that he could run away from God, which is how crazy we start thinking when our fleshly judgment gets the better of us. In hindsight, you look back and go, what was he thinking? Or in our case, what was I thinking when I did X, Y, and Z? We don't have to look too far for examples of wrong judgment. I just picked like the top 3 of the Old Testament to spare our feelings. Right? Because I could talk for 45 minutes about my own worldly judgment gone wild. And then the police would show up and, all that stuff. So The problem with worldly judgment gone wild is that it is, at its core, sin. It's evil. It's wickedness. Because we defy who God is, what God is doing, and what God's written word says. God told Jonah, go north by land. Jonah said no, an act of rebellion, sin, evil, and wickedness. Lot got to see quiet country living versus crazy city living, and the young man chose wrong. Eve was given one command. It's rebellion. It's sin, it's evil, and it's wickedness. And we've got plenty of personal experience of doing that. And when it all boils down to is it's a Bible word. It's idolatry. Idolatry is when you put something, anything, in first place above and beyond God. God is supposed to be first place in our thoughts, in our words, in our lives. So that if somebody examines your life, they see evidence that God is number one in your life. Anytime we put something else as number one in our lives, Eve put herself, Lot put the city life, Jonah, I don't know what Jonah was thinking, but idolatry. And it's something that you and I constantly struggle with. Who is in charge of our lives? We say God is while sitting on the command chair. We say Jesus is driving the car and we're the passenger while we're sitting in the driver's seat trying to wrestle the wheel from. It's selfishness, it's idolatry, it's evil, it's sin. We can totally relate. And Jesus was calling the self-righteous leaders on that sin and our sin. The first phrase,